The restaurant was quiet, the hum of conversations barely reaching my ears. My mom smiled over her plate and then looked straight at me. "So, when are you going to catch up?" The words landed like a weight I'd carried for years, pressing against my chest all at once. The fork in my hand felt heavier than usual. Around us, the clink of glasses and soft laughter continued, but for me, the moment froze. No anger, no theatrics, just clarity. "My name is Elena. I'm 33. For most of my life, I was the quiet one, the daughter who tried to stay invisible, who absorbed comparison like oxygen, who never spoke up, and who kept herself smaller to avoid being noticed. On paper, my family seemed perfect. Comfortable homes, holiday dinners photographed for social media, a mother who talked endlessly about family pride. Inside, a quiet hierarchy. I had learned my place early. My sister, Sophia, 2 years older, was effortlessly impressive. Teachers adored her, friends flocked to her. Everyone saw her as the golden child. My mom would beam about her like she was proof of success. I read in my room, achievements barely acknowledged, my worth measured quietly and inconsistently. After my parents split, my mom remarried. Mark moved in, a man who stayed neutral, which really meant staying silent. He never fueled the favoritism, but he never stopped it either. Dinner was a daily battlefield. Sophia's stories stretched across the table, mine barely received a nod. I worked my way through school alone, took jobs I didn't love, saved every penny quietly, all while being careful not to announce my plans. By the time I met Daniel, I was already exhausted from proving myself. He was calm in a way that felt new. He listened without judgment. He never asked when I'd catch up because, to him, I already had. We built a life together that made sense to us. A home warm with light and laughter, not appearances. Our house was modest but full of character. Morning sun poured through the windows. Coffee and fresh bread filled the kitchen. On weekends, we hosted friends who actually showed up for us. People who knew our names without needing context. I didn't invite my family, not out of spite, but because I wanted something in my life that didn't feel like a test. Of course, they noticed eventually. Questions started soft, curious, then sharper. Success in my family was only real if it could be measured and displayed. The first question came casually from my mom. "So where exactly did you end up buying?" she asked one afternoon, her tone light, almost playful. I stayed neutral. In the city, quiet neighborhood, nothing fancy. The more neutral I stayed, the more tension I felt radiating from her. Weeks later, I realized the real motive. At a grocery store near my house, I ran into Mike, a family acquaintance. His tired smile arrived late. When he mentioned their house, his voice dropped. Payments, bills, it adds up faster than you think. He didn't need to say more. I understood perfectly. After that, my mom's calls shifted. She no longer asked about our home. Instead, she subtly brought up stress, Jessica's struggles, and family obligations. And then she said it plainly. "Maybe you could help out a little, just until things stabilize." Help out meant money, not support, not advice. I stared at the numbers on my desk, the hard-earned sum I had saved carefully over the years. Thoughts of every moment I had struggled alone flashed before me. When I said no, the air shifted. My mom sounded hurt, disappointed, as if I had failed some invisible test. Mark sent a message about responsibility. Sophia went silent, then finally said, "I didn't think you'd be like this." And just like that, my role in their lives changed. Invitations stopped, updates stopped, and this time, it wasn't because I hadn't done enough. It was because I refused to fix what wasn't mine to fix. That night, sitting on the couch with Daniel, I said it out loud. "I think they only want me around when I'm useful." He nodded silently. "How much access are you willing to give people who don't actually see you?" he asked gently. I didn't answer immediately, but something had already shifted. For the first time, I wasn't trying to earn my place. I was imagining what life would look like if I stopped trying altogether. The silence from my family didn't erupt immediately. Texts stopped, calls stopped, posts went up, proof they carried on but without me, and for the first time in years, that silence didn't scare me. The days after that night felt different. I filled my calendar with people who showed up without conditions. Quiet dinners, long walks with Daniel, friends who laughed freely. Life felt lighter. But the shadow of my family's expectations still lingered. Occasionally my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. Short, polite, curious, nothing accusatory, yet. I didn't reply immediately. I let the silence stretch, letting the lesson sink in. Weeks passed. The first real test came with an invitation. My mom called. Jessica's birthday dinner, a fancy restaurant, just family. My first instinct was hesitation. Part of me wanted to refuse, to avoid another moment of judgment. But another part, the part that finally had clarity, whispered, "See what happens when you no longer play their game." So I said yes, calm, steady, unshaken. The restaurant was exactly how my mom liked it. Low lighting, polished surfaces that reflected every face, every imperfection. Sophia was already there, perfectly styled, the kind of flawless presence that could intimidate anyone. Mom hugged. Her first, Mark followed politely. And then it was my turn. I stood with a neutral smile, one that hid years of swallowed words and quiet endurance. Dinner began with careful small talk. Updates about work, vague compliments, shared news that didn't matter. No one asked how I was doing. I watched my mother cut into her food, savoring each bite, then turned to me. Her smile was that practiced mask, the one she wore when she wanted to appear warm and approving. "Your sister's housewarming party was lovely," she said lightly, like commenting on the weather. "Everyone's still talking about it." Her eyes shifted to me immediately after. "When are you going to catch up?" The fork in my hand felt heavy again. For a moment, time slowed. I thought about every year I had laughed off similar questions, every dinner where my achievements were ignored, every silent nod when I needed acknowledgement. I set the fork down, calmly, without hesitation. "I hosted mine last year," I said. The table froze. Not a sound. My mother blinked, trying to process. "Yours?" she asked, disbelief creeping into her voice. "Yes," I replied steadily. "David and I had a housewarming. It was a really nice night." The reaction was immediate. Mom's confusion turned into hurt, disbelief, or maybe both. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, voice tight, almost accusatory. I took a slow breath. "You just weren't on the guest list." Silence. Thick, deliberate, uncomfortable. Sophia froze mid-sip, her glass suspended in air. Mark looked up, eyes wide. My mom's fork hovered halfway to her mouth. No one knew what to say. The air felt heavier than any argument I'd ever had. "I need to finish," I said, voice calm but firm. For 30 years, my life only mattered when it looked like Sophia's. When I struggled quietly, it didn't count. When I succeeded quietly, it didn't matter. And when I finally built something that made me happy, your first question wasn't about me, it was why you weren't invited. Mom's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "I love you. You're my daughter." I shook my head slightly. Love isn't just pride when something looks good from the outside. Love is showing up when it doesn't. And I'm done being convenient. I'm done absorbing discomfort so others don't have to face it. Mark cleared his throat, trying to mediate. "This feels unfair," he said carefully. I met his eyes. "I stopped sacrificing myself to keep things comfortable," I said simply. Sophia looked down, voice small. "I didn't realize you felt this way." "I'm not blaming you," I replied. "We were kids, but now we're adults, and I'm done pretending this dynamic is healthy." The silence stretched again. Somewhere, a glass clinked. Life continued around us, indifferent. I reached for my wallet, laying cash on the table. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm just done apologizing for who I am." I turned to Sophia. "Happy birthday. I hope you find what you're looking for." And with that, I walked away. Not angrily, not dramatically, just away. I already knew the look I would see. Shock, not because of words, but because I finally meant them. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It trickled in pieces. A few days of silence, no calls, no messages. And for the first time in years, that emptiness felt like freedom, not fear. The days that followed the restaurant dinner were quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar but necessary. The phone stayed silent. Messages, invitations, even the usual casual check-ins never came. And for the first time in decades, that silence didn't sting. It felt clean. Sophia was the first to surface. A short, careful message. She needed space. I gave it to her without hesitation. I had learned that distance can be a kind of mercy, both for them and for me. Over the following weeks, subtle FTs became visible. Sophia downsized her house. The lavish parties disappeared, replaced by simpler gatherings. Photos on social media were less curated, more ordinary. Books, walks, a dog that seemed endlessly grateful just to exist in the moment. My mom tried to reach out once. A tentative message. No apology, just a soft opening. I didn't rush to fill it. My life was no longer defined by how others perceived me, nor by their approval. Daniel and I returned fully to our routines. Mornings filled with the aroma of coffee. Evenings that ended quietly, without judgment or tension. Friends who stayed without expectations. Our home felt lighter, like it had been waiting for me to stop dragging old weight through the door. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel guilty. I felt steady, strong, free. Sometimes I still think about that night. The fork hovering in midair, the silence that followed. That silence didn't break my family. It showed me my own worth for the first time without compromise. For years I had believed that love meant proving myself, shrinking to fit someone else's narrative, hiding my pain to keep others comfortable. I was wrong. Love doesn't demand you disappear. Success doesn't need an audience. Approval isn't required for a life well lived. My family didn't like it, of course. That's to be expected. People rarely embrace change when it doesn't include them. But I realized that their discomfort was not my responsibility. My boundaries, once invisible, now existed firmly. They didn't need to be announced. They simply changed what I was willing to tolerate. A few weeks later, my mom called again. Another invitation. Sophia's birthday dinner. I said yes, but not to be welcomed back. I said yes to see what happened when I refused to play the old role. The restaurant gleamed, polished to reflect every face, every emotion. Sophia looked flawless, perfect perfect posture, the kind of control that seemed impossibly fragile. Mom hugged her first. Mark followed politely, and then it was my turn. I smiled, polite but unreadable, carrying every year of silent endurance behind my eyes. Dinner started as expected, small talk, updates that weren't really updates, commentary carefully curated for appearances. No one asked how I was doing. Then came the familiar comment, the same weight I had carried for years. Mom, glancing at the room but speaking to me directly. Your sister's housewarming party was lovely. Everyone's still talking about it. When are you going to catch up? I paused. Time slowed. The city outside hummed along, indifferent. I thought of all the times I had laughed off comments like this, all the nights I had replayed them, wondering what I should have said differently. I set my fork down, calm, steady, firm. I hosted mine last year, I said. Silence. My mom blinked, processing. Yours? She asked, confused. Yes, I replied. David and I had a housewarming. It was a really nice night. The reaction was immediate. Hurt, confusion, disbelief. Why didn't you tell us? She asked, voice tight. I took a steady breath. You weren't on the guest list. The table went still. Sophia froze mid-sip. Mark's eyes widened. My mom's fork hovered, untouched. Not a single word could cut through the weight of that truth. I need to finish, I said. For 30 years, my life only mattered when it looked like Sophia's. When I struggled, it didn't count. When I succeeded quietly, it didn't matter. And when I finally built something that made me happy, your first question wasn't about me. It was why you weren't invited. Mom's eyes filled with tears. I love you, she whispered. I know, I said, but love isn't just pride when something looks good. It's showing up when it doesn't. And I'm done being convenient. I'm done abso. Our being discomfort so others don't have to. Mark tried to mediate, but I shook my head gently. I stopped sacrificing myself to keep things comfortable. That's all you need to know. Sophia's voice was soft. I didn't realize. I nodded. I know. But we're adults now, and I'm done pretending this dynamic is healthy. The silence stretched again. Somewhere a glass clinked. Life moved on around us, indifferent. I reached for my wallet. I'm not angry. I'm done apologizing for who I am. I turned to Sophia. Happy birthday. I hope you find what you're looking for. And then I walked away. The fallout didn't come all at once. It arrived in pieces. Texts, calls, apologies, explanations, all delayed, hesitant, sometimes empty. But I didn't chase them. I didn't defend myself. I let them navigate their discomfort without me. For the first time in my life belonged to me. The weeks turned into months, and the quiet became my sanctuary. The phone buzzed occasionally, short messages from my mom, cautious notes from Sophia. But I didn't rush to respond. My life no longer revolved around their approval. I built routines that nourished me. Mornings with sunlight spilling into the kitchen, coffee in hand, no anxiety about others' expectations. Evenings spent laughing with Daniel, our friends, our neighbors, people who valued presence over performance. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel guilty. I felt steady. My energy wasn't drained. My mind wasn't consumed by calculating what I owed or who needed what. I realized something profound. Peace wasn't found in solving other people's problems. It was found in honoring my own life. Occasionally, I thought about the restaurant night, the fork suspended midair, the silence that followed. That moment didn't break my family. It broke the invisible chains I had carried for decades. I no longer needed approval, validation, or acknowledgement to feel complete. Messages trickled in from Sophia, careful and polite. I need space, one said. I gave it freely. Boundaries, I learned, aren't punishment. They're protection. They're the framework that allows life to exist on your terms. Months later, a subtle shift appeared. Sophia downsized her home. Her posts reflected ordinary, peaceful moments instead of curated perfection. My mom sent tentative messages, openings rather than demands. And I realized the world doesn't end when you stop being convenient. It rearranges itself to fit the truth you final. Why choose to live? I still think about that night. The silence that hung heavy over the table. Not explosive, not dramatic, just deliberate. That silence didn't punish anyone. It revealed the dynamics that had held me back for so long. And for the first time, I could live without carrying the weight of expectations that were never mine to bear. I learned that love doesn't demand invisibility. Success doesn't require an audience. And boundaries, when applied firmly, quietly, and consistently, change not just your life, but the way others perceive it. For the first time in my life, I could say, this life is mine, entirely, unapologetically. If this story resonates, if you've ever been compared, overlooked, or made to feel small, know this: you're not late, you're not lacking, you're simply done running someone else's race. And when I finally understood that, I felt a quiet strength, a calm power I had never known before. I didn't need anyone's approval. I didn't need anyone's validation. I only needed to honor myself. Silent Reveng.